Hello everyone and welcome to another World of Tanks video. This is the first video in a guide series I'll be doing, which covers some aspects of the game that I feel are important for new players to learn. In this episode we'll be talking about tank crews, the roles they play in the vehicles, go over some of how their training works, and also how they can be moved from tank to tank. So when you start playing World of Tanks, you'll have Tier 1 vehicles from every nation in the game. Now I no longer have any Tier 1 vehicles, so I'm using this Stug 4 as an example. The crew of your Tier 1 vehicles should look just as this one looks. This is a fully trained crew, where the commander is trained to 100% and everyone else is trained to 110%. The extra 10% is given from the commander's 10% bonus, as we can see in the personal profile. Now every crew member has a role to play in a tank. Depending on the level of training of the crew member, that will affect the vehicle's statistics. As you can see here, the crew for the Stug 4 is fully trained, and so none of the statistics of the vehicle are being negatively impacted by having an undertrained crew member. Now I have a Tiger 2 in my garage, which has an undertrained crew that I'm going to use as an example to show you how training can affect a vehicle's statistics. So as you can see here, the commander of my Tiger 2, as well as the driver and radio operator, are not trained on the Tiger 2. And over here on the right, we can see the negative side effects of not having a trained crew member. So let's go ahead and go down the list of my crew members, and I'll show you how everyone's job is being affected by the level of training. To start off with, we'll take a look at the commander, who mainly affects a vehicle's view range, but also has a small impact on every aspect of the vehicle. So let's go ahead and go down to the bottom of the list here where we see view range. Now you can see here the view range of on this Tiger 2 is 285 meters, and we can see a current penalty of 105 meters because the commander is not trained for the Tiger 2. Next we'll take a look at the gunner and the type of statistics that he has an effect on. Now this gunner is trained to 100% already, and he is getting a +4 bonus from the commander. So let's go ahead and go back up to the top of the list to see the statistics that the gunner has an impact on, which are going to be things like turret traverse speed, aim time, and accuracy. If we take a look at turret traverse speed, it is currently getting a penalty because the commander is not trained. And it's the same type of situation with aim time and accuracy. We're not receiving a penalty from the gunner because, as I stated already, he's already trained on this vehicle to 100%. And since the commander, as I had stated earlier, has a small impact on every statistic of the vehicle, that is what is providing the penalty. Next we'll take a look at the driver and the type of statistics that he has an effect on, and we'll see what sort of effect we get from having him also not being trained on the Tiger 2. So we'll go ahead and go down here and take a look at the mobility statistics. So we can see here on the traverse speed, it is receiving a penalty from not only the commander not being trained for the Tiger 2, but also a penalty for the driver not being trained on the Tiger 2. Next we'll take a look at the radio operator's position down here at the bottom of the list. Again, we can see the signal range being affected not only by the commander not being trained, but also by the radio operator not being trained for the vehicle. And lastly, we have the loader's position. Obviously, the loader affects the reload speed of the vehicle, but since he is trained for the Tiger 2, the only penalty that we're receiving is from the commander. Okay, so I think you guys get the idea. If your crew isn't trained for a vehicle, they'll receive a penalty. So how do you train a crew for a vehicle? Well, you just mouse over your crew member, right click, open up their personal profile, and go into the training tab. Now in the training tab, down below here, we can see the current vehicle that the commander is trained for, which is a Panzer B2. I can change the vehicle that this commander is trained for by selecting a vehicle type. Under light tank, it has all the light tanks that I can train him for. Same deal with medium tanks and heavy tanks. Now the easiest way to make sure that you don't mess up is to just click the current vehicle, which will automatically select the Tiger 2. Now let's say I didn't want this crew member to be a commander anymore. I can change that through this menu here. It does cost gold to change him to either a driver, radio operator, or gunner, whatever the case may be. As you can see here, if I select the Tiger II, I can retrain the commander to any position. But that does require 500 gold. So back to the training tab here. You can see that there are different levels of training. If I just wanted my commander to be trained at 50%, that's completely free and I can do that. I could also pay 20,000 credits to have him at 75%, or 200 gold to just get him to 100% right away. Let's go ahead and just select 50% and you guys can see the sort of effect that has on the vehicle. Okay, so now my commander is trained for the Tiger II, but he's only at 50%. But we can see here the sort of effect that it has had on the statistics of the vehicle. So let's go ahead and retrain our other crew members for the Tiger II. And I'll show you guys the change that makes. So now, even though that we've retrained our crew to be on the Tiger II, we're still not performing at the Tiger's top capabilities. As you can see here, if I mouse over the rate of fire, we can see that we are still receiving a penalty because the commander is trained less than 100%. But at least we're no longer receiving the massive penalty that we were before for the commander not being trained on that vehicle at all. So let me go ahead and go back to the Stug 4 here, and back to our 100% trained crew. So when you have a fully trained crew like this one, you'll see that they have a little gold plus sign next to their name, and that means that they're ready to select a perk. Once crew members are trained to 100%, they can select one of these perks or skills. Now, perks and skills work similar to how regular training works. You select a perk or skill, and play with the vehicle and earn XP until the perk or skill reaches 100%. Once it's at 100%, you can select a new perk or skill. And with each perk or skill you select, it's going to become more and more difficult to continue leveling those up. I can go ahead and show you an example of how that works now. So let's go ahead and take a look at my mouse crew real quick. As you can see, they're all trained for this vehicle, and they're all on their first perk, but only at 50%. So if I go ahead and open up the personal profile, you can see to get from 48 to 49%, he's going to need 127 experience. Now let's go ahead and compare that with a more skilled crew, say on my T-34. If we look at the commander on my T-34, he's sitting at 80% on his 5th skill, and in order to get to 81%, he'll need another 50,610 experience. So that kind of demonstrates to you how the difficulty of leveling up perks can continue when you have more and more of them. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about how crews need to be trained for the vehicle that they're on, and how they can only be trained for one vehicle at a time. There is, however, an exception to this rule, and that is going to be premium or reward vehicles. And you can see the vehicles in my garage here that have the golden names instead of the white names here at the bottom are going to be those premium or reward vehicles. So let me go ahead and show you an example here. You can see this crew is currently trained for the T-34. However, if I go over here to my T-54 first prototype, I can go ahead and return, and you can see that even though it's a different vehicle, and it says they're not trained for the T-54 Mod 1, they can go ahead and use this vehicle without any sort of penalty. That's because it's a premium vehicle. This, however, only works for vehicles of the same class and nation. If, for example, I tried to put my T-34 commander from a Russian medium tank into an IS-6, a Russian heavy tank, you can see that he will be getting a penalty. He's only trained to 80% now. So that's sort of how crews work with premium tanks. you can put crew members of the same class and nation into it without receiving a penalty. However, if you try to put them into a premium tank of a different class, they will receive a penalty. Okay, so far we've kind of gone over the penalties you can receive if a crew member is not trained for a certain vehicle, how crew training and selecting perks and skills works. And so now we'll be going a little bit over strategies that you can use for leveling up your crews. And so one strategy that I would suggest you try doing when you're going down a line in a tech tree is to move your crew to each new tank. And basically what this means is, for example, if you're going from the T-3485 to the T-43, when you unlock the T-43, sell the 3485 and move your crew into the T-43. Of course, this isn't something you have to do. If you really enjoy the T-3485 and you plan on keeping it, you can keep the crew in there if you like to. But if you do move it into the T-43 and retrain them for that vehicle, then they'll already be that much ahead. And if you keep doing that all down the line until you get to, say, the T-62A or Object 140, you'll have a really well-trained crew for your new Tier 10. However, this strategy doesn't always work out perfectly, and I'll go ahead and give you an example here. So if we preview the vehicle, we can see that the T-3485 has a commander, gunner, driver, radio operator, and loader. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what the T-43 has. Commander, gunner, driver, loader. So that means that you'll be losing a crew member when you move from your crew from the T-3485 to the T-43. And that job will now be performed by the commander. So that is one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're moving a crew down a line in a tech tree, is that it may not always work out. You may have to drop a crew member or pick a new one up along the line. So now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about equipment and consumables that can help raise the effectiveness of your crew. So we'll go ahead and use the Mod 1 as an example again here. You can see my crew not receiving a penalty, as I said before. My commander is now at 110%, and the rest of the crew is at 121%, unlike the fully trained crew on the Stug 4. And that's because of the equipment and also perks that I have selected for this crew. As you can see, if I open up the personal profile of my commander, he's receiving plus 5% from skills and perks, which is the Brothers in Arms perk, and also 5% from equipment and consumables, and that is the ventilation here. As you can see, the ventilation adds plus 5% to all crew skills. There is one more thing you can do to increase the effectiveness of your crew, and that is going to be by using a premium consumable. As you can see here, with the premium consumable, that adds 10% to all crew skills and perks. However, this only works for the duration of one battle. So we can see, if I bring up the personal profile again, now this has gone from 5% to 15%. And you can see that the percentage on the rest of the crew has gone up as well. However, now that I have the premium consumable on there, that is as high as the skill level will go. There's nothing else that you can do to increase that. I have Brothers in Arms, I'm using ventilation, and I have the premium consumable. And so this is as possibly high as you could get a crew to be trained. Well, I think that about covers the basics of crews and crew training. It's something that can be kind of complicated for new players to understand, so that's kind of why I wanted to make a guide on it. However, if there's anything in this video that I haven't touched on and you still had a question to ask, feel free to ask it and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. And with that said, I think in the future I will also plan on making a video that covers perks and skills more in depth than what this video did. And I think that'll about wrap it up. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.